Okay, I'm gonna get rid of that. All right, let's watch this video, see if it works.
Excuse me, this is not about protecting my friend. I'm a big fan of homeostasis. Do you know what that is?
Of course not.
Homeostasis refers to a system's ability to regulate its internal environment and maintain a constant condition of properties like temperature or pH.
Worst bedtime story ever.
My point is, I don't like when things change. So, regardless of your feelings, I would like you to continue dating Leonard. And also, while we're on the subject, you recently changed your shampoo. I'm not comfortable with the new scent. Will you please stop this madness and go back to Green Apple?
Okay, so little humor there on homeostasis. So we're going to look at the homework together here. I'm going to zoom in on this area. And you should know from Sheldon what homeostasis is about. Sorry about that. It's the ability of an organism or cell to try to maintain a constant internal environment. Temperature, pH, levels of salt, levels of nutrients, water, all those kinds of things. And your book really kind of skirts, for some reason, the whole area of homeostasis, and really kind of breaks things down into two groups, unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. So let's take a look at that. Going down here to the bottom of the page, we know that homeostasis is how things are trying to maintain their constant internal environment. And then we have here unicellular prokaryotes. So if you remember those, unicellular means one cell. Prokaryote, these are things with cells that don't have parts for the most part. They don't have Golgi apparatus and nuclei and all that kind of stuff. And I was looking in the text, I don't think you could find this, but there are certain types of prokaryotes that live in very non-hospitable places, such as volcanic vents under the ocean or even on land. And they have a number of names. I have heard the word extremophile or thermophile. Let's write those down over here. So let me grab my text here. So extremophile, and again the word phile means to like, or thermophile. Make that a little bit bigger so you can see that better. There we go, perfect. So an extremophile or thermophile are typically unicellular critters that that can stand very extreme temperatures, salinity, pH, etc. All right. Then talks about unicellular eukaryotes. So let me turn off my email. Sorry about that. Eukaryote meaning they have a true nucleus. So these are the cells that have all the parts that we just learned about, the Golgi apparatus and the nucleus and the endoplasmic reticulum, all that kind of fun stuff. Yeast are a type of a mold. So they belong to one of the kingdoms of living things called molds or fungi. And they are a little bit different from other living things. They're somewhat animal-like in that they can't make food from the sun, unlike question number 3, which I think have just managed to skip. So these are the algae. And there is the algae like I showed you in class with the jar with all the stringy stuff, but there's just also unicellular algae that contain chloroplasts, and they're able to do photosynthesis. And then we have the yeast, or a type of mold, which are eukaryotic, which are have a true nucleus. So let's kind of look at some of those terms really quickly. So I'm going to draw out a circle here. So if these are all of the living things inside of the circle, oops, we can make a circle within it. So again, these represent all living things, and in this circle are the prokaryotes, and they don't have a true nucleus, and they are all unicellular. And then in this bigger circle, we have the eukaryotes, like us. And then most of these things that are eukaryotic, sorry about that, are also multicellular. Oops, let's try that again. Sorry about that, Chief. So let's put multicellular. And let's bring that, sorry about that, to the front. So all living things are in the big circle. And notice the prokaryotes and multicellular organisms don't overlap. All multicellular organisms would be eukaryotes. So there you go. Let's go back to here. So yeasts are one of those groups, and all yeast are eukaryotes, but some are multicellular and some are not. So let's draw that circle, and we'll make it a pink outline just so you can see that. So this circle would represent the yeasts. They're all eukaryotes. Some of them are multicellular, and some of them are not. All right. And then this question number 5, other unicellular eukaryotes include protists and algae. Protists, kind of like this fungi group, we can make a different group. Here, let me just make a copy of that, and we'll make the protists green on the outside. And for the most part, we could say that protists are eukaryotic, but they are not ever multicellular. So again, all living things, prokaryotes, everything outside of that circle are eukaryotes. Some of them are multicellular, which is this circle. Some of them are not, which is this, whatever shape this is. Then we have the yeast, which all eukaryotic, some multicellular, some not. And this green circle is the protists, and none of them are multicellular. All right. Let's go on to page 2. How do single-cell organisms maintain homeostasis? And we talked about that a little bit today. It's all about the cell membrane, right? If we're trying to get the same, maintain a stable inside, we want to make sure we don't take in things from the outside, which will upset that balance. So if something lives in a very haline or salty environment, and it doesn't want salt to come in or water to rush out, it's going to have a way of dealing with that. And on a singular cell level, that might be more difficult because unlike a multicellular organism like us, so for example, when we go in the salt water, we don't shrivel up and die because we've got a layer of dead skin cells that protect us. But if you're a single cell and you go in the ocean and you don't like salt, you're going to die. So it's much more difficult for single cell organisms to maintain homeostasis because they are their own one and only thing. They don't have specialized parts that can maintain the inside of an animal or plant. All right, let's move on to the second section, which is on multicellular life. How are the cells of a multicellular organism like a baseball team? I'm not a big baseball fan, but I suppose it's like anything that in multicellular life, we have division of jobs. Um, so your heart doesn't have to see. Your toes don't have to see. Your tongue doesn't have to see. Your liver doesn't have to see. That's all done by your eyes, and that gets sent to the brain, which then affects all the other systems. And similarly, your eyes don't digest food. That's the job of your stomach and intestine. So you can kind of work with that, but that's the idea of a multicellular organism. All the different cells can have their own jobs. And how do they maintain homeostasis? Well, again, we kind of talked about that with the analogy of going in the ocean, that we can have different cells for protection that we can kind of sacrifice, and others that we want to keep kind of shelter, the ones more interior in the body. Maintaining homeostasis in a multicellular organism does mean, however, that we need a way to move materials around if they're rather large. And so almost every large multicellular organism needs some sort of a circulatory system. So for us, it's the heart and the blood vessels that move stuff around, and that kind of helps move things around. This, I'll just have you look up in the book what they do, what the cilia do in our lungs, and what the wings do for pollen grain. That's explained pretty well in the book. And then I'll show you this last part here. And they have it as a Venn diagram. I'm going to show it to you a little bit differently here. Okay. So we're going to say that the basic unit of life is the cell. So our body is made out of lots and lots and lots and lots of cells. Okay. If these two cells come together and they're similar and they have the same job, we call them a tissue. Let's give that a stroke so you can actually see them. Oops. Sorry about that. This is not quite as quick as drawing on a tablet, but you get the idea. So when cells come together, they form tissues. And then when we have tissues come together, oops, let's try that again. Tissues come together, they form organs. Okay. So for example, we might have cells that make up muscles. The muscle will be the tissue, and the muscles might come together with blood vessels and fat to make an organ like the heart. And then we have organs come together to form organ systems. Kind of crowded here. So again, kind of the heart, the blood vessels, the what, all those kind of things make up the organ system. And then finally, you get a bunch of organ systems, and they form you, which is the organism. All right, let's resize that box so you can see it. There we go. So that's sometimes called the hierarchy of life. So let's review that one more time. So our body is made of lots of cells. Cells that are the same, that do one job, are called a tissue, like skin cells, muscle cells, nervous tissue, fat cells. Those tissues come together to form organs, like your heart, lungs, stomach, skin, brain. Organ systems would be like your nervous system, circulatory system, reproductive system, endocrine system, and then all those systems together form the organism. Okay, hierarchy. Okay. And then we have And we're out.